Oh, g'day guys. So in today's episode, we're going through a tray review of the 79. This is a TC Boxes aluminium tray. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. It's just their only option that they had at the time. They now do a TCX tray, which is got a few little fancy features on it now compared to this one. Anyway, we'll get into this week's episode.
Traffic ain't a waste of time. When you were there to hold my hand, but I've had it with the 405 since you said I'd missed my last chance. But I know that you've been asking about me. If I tried though to get you back, would you let me? It might take some time to change your mind, but maybe everything we can make it right this.
The reason why I've decided to do a tray review on this tray in particular is because there's not really that much information out there in terms of videos or anything like that. There's a guy from Alice Springs that's got one of their short toolboxes. It's a bit of a dog box style. He's got one on his single cab Sandy Top Cruiser. I'll link his channel down below for you so you can find his video down there. Yeah, anyway, so let's start off with the dimensions of the tray. So this is an 1800mm tray, so that's the length of it. It is 1780 wide, so width from total width, and the headboard stands at 850mm high. Now, for a cruiser, those dimensions are perfect except for the headboard. Now, when I say except for the headboard, we're talking about how high the tray has to sit for the headboard to be flush with the top of the cab. Now, typically, a headboard on the cruisers will be somewhere around the 950 to 1 metre high. There are some a little bit higher, there are some a little bit lower. So this is certainly on the shorter end of the headboard spectrum of what you'd be running on a cruiser. It does work, but that's why the tray, or this vehicle in particular, looks very high off the ground. And it's actually not as high as what it looks. It's just the tray has been lifted to be compensated for the headboard. Now, apart from that, what else do you get with the tray? So you get two under tray toolboxes, and then you also get the trundle drawer at the rear as well through here. Now, when I bought this tray, I was under the impression that the toolbox was going to cover the whole length, but it doesn't, unfortunately. It's current at the time of when I got this tray. This toolbox was the maximum length that they made. I've been told that they made a 1 metre prior to when I bought this tray, which would have covered the whole length of the tray, so it would have made that extra infill. Now, I've actually had my cousin actually make up some aluminium infills, which I haven't had time to paint up and get around to putting them in. So that's another job for me to get to. And then the other option was the length of the trundle drawer. I wasn't really given it an option, but they do 3 different lengths. They do a 1 metre, a 1400mm, and a 1700mm. And I probably should have gotten for like a 1400mm, but I got the 1700. I wasn't really asked, but I didn't really ask the question either. I didn't really think too much of it at the time. It wasn't impulsive of me buying it, but I just didn't even think, to be honest. Whereas now, if I was to go back again, the other tray option that they did have is a 1650 long, which would have come with a marginally shorter under tray toolboxes and would have covered that in. So it's basically 150mm shorter than this one. And the other things that you would have noticed that the tow bar doesn't quite come out the back of the tray either. Stop the episode right there. Hit that pause button. I've put a QR code at the top of the screen here right now, so you can get a quick easy access, use your phone, use your camera, and I'll give you a quick link to the YouTube channel, and you can hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. With that, we'll get into this week's episode. Righto, so around to the driver's side of the vehicle, and the first thing you notice, I got the fuel filler cap at the rear. The mount for the fuel filler cap is about here, the factory mount onto the chassis. So all I've done is unbolted it and then got some bigger hose and routed it through to the rear. So again, 900mm draw, Metso under tray toolbox. And then the other thing that I've had to do, which if I had known how to cut the mudguards to shape for them to fit, I would have done it a little bit differently. But basically I've trimmed the mudguard straight across for it to fit onto the cab. Now if I had a little bit more experience with or knowledge of how to fit the mudguards, I probably would have shaped it slightly more for it to go around the cab rather than spitting mud up the side of the vehicle. So now moving on to the trundle drawer. So this is 1700 long, pulls out, it's got a lid on top. Now on the lid, I would like to put some kind of latch because occasionally I've had the lid pop up and catch on the inside. I've managed to get something in to lever the lid back down. It's just something else to think about. The other option I could do is actually remove the lid or cut the lid down. Other companies don't do it on gas struts like this one here. It's just something else. It's nothing right or wrong. It's just personal preference as to what you like. The other thing I did notice when we went up north for a couple of weeks, the latch on the back here came a little bit loose, so I wasn't compressioning the seal on the back of the tray here tight enough, so a little bit of dust did get through. I've since adjusted it so it is better and it's not letting as much dust through anymore. The other thing is the latch, the whale tail also has 2 poles to create an extra basically strength point, because there's a lot of weight inside this trundle drawer, and the trundle drawer themselves do weigh quite a bit. It took quite a bit of effort to lift the trundle drawer up and bolt it in place. Now obviously to do that you've got to put the tray upside down because it's pretty hard to hold the trundle drawer up underneath. You probably have to like try and ratchet strap it up there. It's gonna be like 4 blokes underneath the tray. Yeah, it's not really that much of a fun job anyway. It's not something that I'd recommend to do that way. Certainly do it when you're building the tray in its first few stages. Rightio, so onto the tray sides. You've got a few options when you choose them. You've got white, black, or raw. I opted for the raw because originally I was going to paint these silver. I haven't done so, just purely and simply due to time and laziness. Now, so they use the full aluminium tray side with a stainless steel top plate on them, and I assume the top plate's just so you don't damage the actual aluminium itself, or if you've got the painted ones you're not going to scratch the paint off it as easy. Fully steel, good quality latch on them as well. There's a spring inside to create a preload. Now on the front ones, you do have to mount them, the latch, whatever you call the other end of the latch, into the headboard with riv nuts, and then all these hinges and stuff, they're all riv nutted into the tray as well. The only thing I don't like is how far these stick out of the tray compared to other brands. They are a long way. A lot of people do comment about it all the time. Look, to be honest, it's one of those things. There's always going to be something that not everyone's going to like about a tray, and that's, to be honest, is probably one of the biggest things I don't like about it, but it's not really the end of the world, to be honest. So onto the rear lights. These are equipped with a maxi rear light. That's what I believe that they are. It's got LED auto lamps written on here, but they're the most common style of lamp that you can get around the country in terms of tray lights. You can get them in trailer lights and all sorts of other stuff. They're just a good looking LED, to be honest. It's like a bit of a factory look, and they just look good without being too wanky or anything like that. There's some others that you can get with the LED stripes on them. Like, they look cool, but probably not everyone's gonna like them. So onto the number plate light. Now, this is probably a bit of a deal breaker for a lot of people. Now what I'm talking about is the clearance of the number plate light to the actual number plate doesn't realistically stand out enough for what I would call is ADR approved. That's just my opinion about it. Other people will have different comments on this, but I do notice at night time it doesn't actually light the whole number plate. The light arguably gets some of it, but also some of it goes down the back of the plate as well. I don't know, it's just, I don't really like it, but there's not really a hell of a lot of options. The only other way you could do is try and space it out. Spacing it out is going to make it look uglier, bulkier, and a little bit crap, to be honest. One of the things I was told to do prior to mounting the Trundle drawer, which was to mount and wire up the rear light. Now I never did that. I forgot about that, so that was my own fault. Then what I had to do is chop the end of the cable off, extend it, and then try and fish it out with a bit of wire to try and get it out to the side and then join it all together. So that was my own fault, because I couldn't remember that you had to put that in first before the drawer. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's pretty small. Yeah, not everyone's going to like the fact that you can't really arguably see the number plate at night. Yeah, it is pretty minimal. Righto, so now on to the mounts. So basically we've covered the majority of the external of the tray. Now the mounts on these, they use a C-channel. So up under here you'll see that's a foot there. One of the feet, they call them feet for some reason, that's the mounting point. That they bolt to the tray. They get a few different options, and the options are basically there just to, for different chassis of the vehicle as well. Now I was a little bit skeptical in terms of mounting these, just because they just use high tensile bolts, bolt them in. I didn't really know so much what was the strength of a high tensile bolt. And in the tray series build I did put a chart in one of those videos to show you the shear strength of high tensile bolts to give you a bit of an idea. And I'm not at all worried about this tray coming apart or the bolt snapping or anything like that. So that's just something else to consider. Now how the toolboxes and the mudguards all mount, there is some flat bar which you can sort of see up under here. You may not be able to see because of the lighting. Now it's around about 5mm thick. What they do is they drill and tap threads into them, drop your bolt in from the top, nip it up, and then chuck your nut up from the bottom. And therefore you don't need to get back in there, so therefore essentially your bolt shouldn't come loose because it's threaded in and you've tightened it up. So that works actually quite well, that technique. So it was something I was a little bit impressed about. It's something that I probably wouldn't have come up with myself. So they've certainly done a few of these. They built a few of them up. So moving on to the quality of the tray. How is it welded? How thick is the material? So like I've already explained, the flat bar that all the accessories mount onto looks to be around about the 5mm mark. The C-section channeling as the chassis of the bed and the mounts or the feet of the tray looks to be around about that 8mm mark, and it's all TIG welded from the tray sides to the feet to the tray to the headboard. The whole lot is TIG welded. Now obviously this is a Chinese tray, and a lot of people do assume that they're done cheap, which they are built to a price point. Yes, that's correct. But in terms of my cousin, who's a boilermaker, he seems to think that the quality of these trays is pretty good for where they're coming from. Now obviously it's no $20,000 Norwell tray that you see built handmade in Australia. So like, I can't afford to spend that sort of money on a tray like that. It's just one of those things. I bought what I could afford, and I couldn't afford a $20,000 tray. So overall, what's my thoughts on the tray? Let's cut the talk and get straight to it. So what do I think of the tray? Overall, I like it. It looks good. Originally, I bought this tray specifically because I already had an existing canopy, which is going to be the same shape as the headboard. It's all just going to mount nicely. The width of it is identically the same, and the build quality that I had of that canopy was one of their first canopies that they brought in, was good quality. So that's the reason of why I went this tray. Would I go it again? Yes, I would. Yep. Would I go a TCX? To be honest, I haven't looked at the pricing or anything, but that's probably something that I would consider, assuming the price isn't too much more expensive. Now the reasoning for that is, if I'm spending $13,000 on one of these trays, yes, it's a little bit nicer, it's got tie down points and all that sort of stuff integrated into the sides. You can have a look on their websites at those. I would personally put the money into like a, probably not a Norwell tray, but there's other companies that do trays handmade in Australia. It's getting too close to one of those price points. That's just my opinion. However, I would go ahead and buy one of the base model ones again. Yes, that is something that I would consider into the future if I did need to buy another tray. Have you got a TC Boxes tray or canopy? That's my question for you. Comment down below if you like it, if you hate it, if there's any things that you recommend for me to do to my tray. One of the things that I would have liked to have done is shorter under tray toolbox, so therefore I could fit the water tank underneath. So my question is for you, do you have a TC Boxes tray or canopy? Comment down below what you think of it, what you think of the build quality. One of the things that I would have certainly have liked to have done is gone for the 1400mm drawer and put a water tank in front of the drawer. That's just one of the things I really would have liked to have done. But now it's too late because I've already spent the money. So don't forget guys, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment below if you've got any questions about the tray. If you've got any other suggestions that I should do to my tray, do let me know down in the comment section down below. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya.
Been asking about me if I tried though to take it all back, would you let me?